You can see the crankshaft. In case you were wondering, it is never good to be able to see the crankshaft through the spark plug hole. Not even once. Yeah, that guy's got a little more lope to the idle than it should. Doesn't have cam in it. It frickin' feels like everything here at the ranch is broken. Welcome back to the Lost Cause Ranch. Everything's broken. We're heading down to Alabama for the Gulf area Rover romp. Said it right this time, which means we need a Land Rover. Luckily enough, here at the ranch, we have a few of those. Unluckily, pretty much every one of those few is broken. Kalahari, not registered. Eco, you guys heard that at the Jeep event. Camper, well, I suppose a camper could make it, but we're kind of in the middle of that project. Old Merlin just needs some control arms and a couple other little things. So Merlin's a candidate. The Freelander was #1 on my list, but I procrastinated with the busy month it's been and didn't pay for the parts soon enough. That's my fault, so it's out. But it's time to address this thing. All right, so the misfire is on cylinder number 4, which is this one here in the US, driver's side, second one from the front, 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? Land Rover. But no, so we went ahead and swapped the coil from 2 to 4, and unfortunately, it stayed on 4. I was kind of hoping it was a coil that took a vacation, because that's like the easiest thing to do. So there's a good chance it's a fuel injector, or at least I hope it's a fuel injector, and we don't have to get out a compression test. I'm gonna try one more thing first, and that is this. We just pulled the spark plug out of number 4. This guy is an NGK Iridium that we replaced when we did the timing chains on this, which is 15-ish thousand miles ago, 18,000 miles, maybe 20. I don't know. It's probably 18,000 miles at this point. No, I'm lying. It's 15. It's been 15,000 miles since we've done that at this point, but we might have done these when we first got it. I'd have to look back at the videos. If you guys remember, remind me, but I think we were chasing something that ended up being a catalytic converter, and we replaced the plugs then. So that'd be 20,000 miles. So this is probably a 20,000 mile old plug. So it should be fine, but we're gonna do the old swapperoo with number 2 again and see if it follows. I did not see that one coming. Misfire moved over to number 2. So that's about as good an outcome as you can get. I don't see a whole lot of spark plugs anymore that just kind of out of the blue take a crap. But the good news is we got a fresh one here, and it's going to be a relatively simple fix. This guy, let's go there. Any day that you get a delivery from Lucky 8 is a good day. So beyond just that misfire that was taken care of by the spark plug, the old budget LR4 has a tiny bit of a coolant leak that this is going to address. And since we need to get out and explore with it again, we got another set of lift rods from our buddies at Lucky 8. These guys are replacing the ones that we robbed off it for Merlin before we went up and hung out with the Minnesota Land Rover Club. We got to get it set up with the right altitude again. We had a set of wheels lined up to pick up. We're going to throw another set of lift rods at it and get our new crossover pipe that goes on the rear of the engine installed. And that was going to be our ride down to Alabama. We just called an audible. Ted just got a hold of me. He's been working diligently on one of his Land Rovers. I think the trip down to Alabama just got more interesting. So Ted picked this 66 2A up down in Arizona last year and is largely original and largely rust-free. But it hasn't been on the road in 30-some years. So he spent 2 weeks prior to heading down to Alabama, throwing a lot of bit of time and a little bit of money at making this thing go. And it even drove 0.4 miles before we trailered it down. So it is now after we went to Alabama. Obviously, we took none of my broken stuff because the majority of it is still broken. We took Ted's Series 2A instead, which was probably a great choice. But that still leaves us with addressing everything laying around. First off is play a little battery roulette. Not only is everything broken, everything's dead. We also robbed the battery out of the silver one. We needed it for something that we just purchased. More on that later. So now we get to pick up where we left off before Ted and I headed down to Alabama for GAR. And that is with our parts from Lucky 8. We've had these on this guy before. It's kind of boring at stock height, so we get to change that back, along with a new rear coolant crossover pipe. Mine is leaking, this one's not. And all will be right in the world. The crossover pipe isn't the worst thing in the world to do. Why I didn't do it when we did the timing chains, that's my fault. But before we can replace it, we just need to get some stuff out of the way. I think these hose clamps are going to be wore out someday. And we'll just put those right back in so we don't lose them. Now the intake manifold on these is actually fairly easy to remove. As you saw there, I just unbolted the throttle body, got the fuel line out of the way. We need to undo our breather lines, electrical connector, remove a leaf, and then it's just 5 bolts straight down on each side. A couple bolts for the electrical harness that crosses the back. Then I believe there is 1 plug on the back side of the manifold, and that boy just lifts out. Son of a gun. Kind of inconvenient to drop that. I don't know where it went. We'll get the manifold out of the way. You can kind of see, well, you can't really see because it's dark, but right back here, right there. Yeah, all right, now we can get it all the way out of there. See, there's not a whole lot to getting that guy out of there. That 1 connector on the back is right there. Other than that, pretty simple. We have some evidence of coolant leaking back there at the seam. This hasn't been run hot in quite a while, so it's just dried up residue on there. But with the manifold off, in here in the valley, we got quite a bit of coolant sitting at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is run up to Ted's and grab the coolant pressure tester. I don't have one sitting here because Ted has one and he's pretty close, so why double up on that sort of tool, being it's not an everyday use. That's part of why I left the throttle body hooked up. We got coolant lines that go in and out of that guy. So we'll get the pressure tester on there, and I'm kind of suspecting we might have a leaking front crossover Y pipe once again, even though we did this 20,000 miles ago when we did the water pump. But there's no sense in throwing this guy back together without making sure what we got going on here. And since this is going to sit open, we'll make sure nothing is going to drop in the cylinders. We don't need to cause more issues. And this guy here is what we needed the battery for. Some of you may remember that white 5 Series that I bought a couple months ago. Well, we bought another one. These are kind of comically fun. A friend of mine owns a tow company, and every once in a while he has an impound auction. And every once in a while I buy something from that impound auction. And this is today's beauty. Just what Joe needs. More stuff laying around. But hopefully this won't be laying around for long. A few of you gave me some crap about buying that BMW, but I'd like to let you know that BMW no longer with us. It moved on to its new owner after we got it running, drove it for a few months, had some fun with it. It was a manual transmission. Can't beat that anymore. But that BMW made this Freelander essentially free. Yes, that timed out to this popping up for sale 2 days after we sold the BMW, and we moved that money into this guy. As far as I'm concerned, that's the best decision I've ever made in my life. But let me tell you something about impound auctions. They are just like storage unit auctions, in the fact that more than likely if someone wasn't willing to pay the tow bill or the storage fees, it's not worth owning. I hate to break it to you, but Storage Wars on TV isn't quite real life. If there was tens of thousands of dollars worth of stuff left in that storage unit, someone would pay the $600 back fees. Trust me, they wouldn't let it go. Much like this. If this was worth fixing, they would have just fixed it. This particular BMW, I believe, was left at the local BMW dealer, so there's probably something catastrophically wrong with it, but we'll find out. Nonetheless, it is 37 degrees out, so perfect time to own a convertible. But this thing did not start before the auction. Good news is, I robbed the battery out of the LR4, tried to start it, fuel gauge didn't move, so we put some gas in it, tried to start it again, it started. Smoked a little bit, but started. Went to drive it home to the ranch and noticed this issue. But good news is, I think we can remedy that. Well, I think we found why the belt shredded itself. Alternator seems to be locked solid. We'll try and free that up, otherwise we're just gonna have to replace it. We could trailer this to the house, but it's much more entertaining if I can get it to drive. Buy it from the impound, broken, drive it home. Unfortunately, couldn't get the alternator freed up, so that is where the BMW is going to sit until we locate one of those. The local junkyard happened to have one for that white 5 Series that needed one as well. Unfortunately, they don't have two, so we'll have to go and search the internet. I don't know if I want to spend the money on a new one for something that's just a cheap beater, but maybe I will. But also, this showed up today, and that is a crankcase vent valve kit for the BMW. Because like I said, once that thing fired up, it smoked quite a bit, and it's got a lot of signs of a bad one of these. We've replaced many of these over the years. So I went ahead and got one here just in case. I was gonna fix that today, but I couldn't quite get it back to the ranch. In some bonus Freelander news, we got some parts. And because it's a Freelander, there's lots of them, which makes it heavy. We got a freaking load of stuff, and that is mighty exciting. Even a sticker. And the sticker gives you a clue as to where they came from. Want to give a shout out to Travis for reaching out, letting me know that he had all the parts I need, along with the timing tool set, to save the Freelander. With that being said, I appreciate you guys watching, appreciate you subscribing, and we will get the budget LR4 all sorted out and back on the road. I sure do miss driving that thing. And everything else will get sorted in due time. Thankfully, we have plenty of parts laying around to get everything fixed up. For those of you who stuck around long enough in this video, this right here gives you a glimpse into the future of the Eco Challenge. Or is it this one? And just in case you were wondering, Land Rovers aren't the only broken British vehicle we have hanging out around here. Got my buddy's Mini, and this might be hard to see on the camera, but my problems aren't quite so bad. That's down there, and if we stick it in cylinder number 1 here, you can see the crankshaft. In case you were wondering, it is never good to be able to see the crankshaft through the spark plug hole. Not even once. So I believe the rod and piston left the chat, similar to what the Eco sounds like it wants to do.